Business, a podcast for all those subjects we've been trained to avoid. Here's your respectfully irreverent host, Keith Shelton.
Good evening, everybody. So glad you could join us. Let me see here. There we go. Keith Shelton here. I'm the ramrod of this outfit. So glad y'all joined us. I want to remind everybody, when you're joining us live, please comment, tell us who you are and where you're watching us and viewing us from. And please don't hesitate to ask questions, make comments. We're so glad you're with us. I make no bones about it. I think the Lord gave this country a reprieve, a second chance on Tuesday, and I think that we better make the best of it. And I sure appreciate all of you conservatives out there. I make no bones about the fact that I'm a conservative, raised up by good, godly parents, and I don't hesitate to say so. And y'all know me. I have no fear of telling you what I think, so let's hear what you think. Where's my sidekick? Where's my cohort in crime, my co-pilot? There he is. Hey, John. Man. Glad you could join us tonight.
Sorry I couldn't make it last week. I went to go see my son.
I understand. I appreciate you. Back tonight. Appreciate it when you're on. Things always seem to go smoothly when you're on. And folks joining us also from time to time. She can appear very briefly if she wants to, but y'all need to know she's in the background, the smart one of the bunch. My bride, my cohort in crime. Where is she? There she is.
She's here thinking how you just said that things go a lot smoother when JT's here, and feeling very unappreciated.
Did I say smoother? I didn't mean smoother.
Don't try to crawfish. Don't try to crawfish now. It's too late. It's too late.
I'm in between y'all. Y'all need to chill out.
He has given me flowers like 2 days in a row, though, so I think he was building up to it. He was building up so he would.
Let's get some hearts. Let's get some hearts going on that Facebook Live for that sweet love.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Well, y'all, we have a special guest tonight. He's back for our second round. We thoroughly enjoyed him being on with us way back. It was many episodes ago. And like y'all know, we like Nobody's Business is a general interest podcast. We're liable to talk on any subject that we think our listeners and viewers might be interested in. And tonight it's going to be on education. Or should I say indoctrination? Which is it? Mr. Kim Chrestman, where are you?
I'm right here, and it could be a little of both, especially depends on what part of the country and what school you're in.
Yeah. All right, well, let me introduce you. Sit there and look pretty for our viewers and guests. Our guest tonight, do what?
That's hard to do.
Oh, goodness. Our guest tonight's been here before, but here's a refresher for our newest viewers. Kim is an insightful voice in education with a deep understanding of the challenges and opportunities within Mississippi's public school system. He brings years of experience working closely with schools, educators, and policymakers to drive meaningful change. Kim is a longtime administrator. Kim, you've been a principal, you've been a teacher, coach, principal, superintendent. You've been a consultant to a lot of school districts. So
alternative director of alternative schools.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that. You've also been the director of a VOTEC school or two, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sure have. It's done a little bit all of it, Keith.
Well, and that's why you have insights on just about every aspect of the typical educational system in our country. So that's why we love having you on. And well, I'm gonna hit you with some things tonight. But here's one of the things I want to hit first, and that's a subject that you and I spoke on briefly out of view of our viewers and listeners, and that is some recent test scores out of the state of Mississippi.
Yes.
Tell us what that was about.
Well, our conversation, based on, testing, the importance of testing, why do we test and all that, was that Mississippi schools this year had a lot of improvements in the schools and school districts. We have the rating system of A, B, C, D, F, and we had a lot of schools that had been.
Now, wait a minute. You're not talking about the student scores. You're talking about the school district scores.
The school
ABC,
district or
right?
the school itself.
Okay.
That's right. Not the students, the school district or the school itself, because that's what's rated. And that A, B, C, D, F. But in Mississippi, we had a lot of schools that scored that used to be C, D, Fs scored A, B this year.
Well,
and
So did everybody get smarter, Kim?
not that smart, not that many.
and
What happened? What happened? How'd that happen?
It jumps out at you is something's going on.
And not that quickly either.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, Mississippi has not been known for leading the nation in test scores. And while we have moved up, I think, to somewhere around 34th or something like that, it may even be higher. I haven't seen that in a long time, but we have moved up. And but you just don't have the percentage of schools scoring A, B all of a sudden that used to be C, D, and F schools.
Mm-hmm.
How'd that happen? How did that happen, Kim?
Well, that's what Keith and I were discussing. There's several reasons as I researched that after we got through talking. And a lot of it has to do with the COVID years. And because one of the things that school districts would do during the COVID years, the state would allow them to keep their current rating prior to the pandemic or COVID years. So let's just say that a school had a C rating, but yet they scored a D or an F on the state testing. During COVID years, they would keep the C, not the low scores. Does that make sense?
So they were trying to give people.
I hear what you're saying, but no, it doesn't make sense.
So they were trying to give them a pass, I guess, because of the situation.
Well, they wasn't at school.
Yeah.
They were doing online. So how you gonna test them? And it be valid.
I don't know, but if they had me I tried to cheat and take my kids' test, I think the score would go down. I don't think it'd go up.
Well, it didn't go down. They would not allow it to go down. So they kept most schools. Now, if they scored higher, they would get the higher score. Mm-hmm. Okay. But most schools scored a whole lot lower that year because very little learning happened. And then they came in 20, what was that, in 20? COVID?
2020.
19 and 20.
Mm-hmm.
So we had 2 years there. So we had low scores, didn't learn much. And then the next year we had low scores. Well, the Mississippi model is based on growth. It's based on the bell curve, and it's based upon growth. So the scores dropped, but this past year's model went against or measured itself based on those low scores, which means what?
Well, they naturally would have gone up because we were out of COVID.
We were out of COVID. We've had 2 full years of classroom instruction, but yet our test scores is going to be measured, our cut scores are going to be measured against those that was from the COVID year. So we're going to see a lot of growth.
Well, what do you mean by a cut score?
I asked him this question earlier, Keith, and his answer to me was kind of making the cut. like in
Well,
sports, how you make the cut. This is
Mhm.
the part
Right.
where
If
is
you've
acceptable.
got to the cut score, let's just say you have 100 questions. In order to make a advanced, you gotta get 90 over 90 correct on that. In order to make proficient, you gotta get 80, at least 80 questions right. Okay, but under that exam, then back when the test was given during COVID, your kids may be making 30 or 40, but yet they are given 70 or an 80 because that's what they scored last year.
Mm-hmm.
So they kept their old score unless they scored higher. So this past year, the scores went back to the average of those, which would have been low because they're measuring growth.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to grow from a 30 or 40 or 50.
And look good.
It'll look good. And what'll happen is you'll have a lot of schools score to be A or B schools because the test hadn't changed. It's the same test. The test is in the last 8 years has been the same. The only thing is what's happened is we were gradually making growth, and that's what you want. Mississippi does a good job on that. We're seeing the test scores and students' functioning grow gradually.
Look here, Kim. Can you see your screen?
Uh,
JT's highlighting an article, and it says that an elementary school in the Mississippi Delta went from a failing school to an A-rated one, all in the span of a year.
That's what I was talking about.
Right.
The only
Right.
way they can do that is because the cut scores went back to those COVID years, which were real low.
And so it wasn't that hard to show improvement, the growth you're talking about.
That's what I'm talking about. So they grew significantly enough to cause them, because it's a growth model. It's a growth model. So the way you really score is it's based on those other years' scores.
All right. Well, let me ask you something. I think we're all understanding what you're saying. Is these results explained to the public, to the parents, to the school boards, to the news media as truthfully and accurately as you're explaining them to us now? Or are these artificial A and B scores being used to tout, hey, look at us, look how great we've done?
Okay,
if they're
here's
not
the answer to that,
actually
Keith.
Yeah, and
Here's
what
the
and
answer to that. JT just put an article out there and pulled up what's in the newspaper.
yeah.
It's there, but when you get to the local school district, they got a big sign hanging out on the doors on the outside, A school district, B school district. They're putting in the local newspapers that they have through growth and accountability model that they have moved from a D or an F to an A.
Kim,
Yeah.
what would you say is the motivation behind this it's kind of like a false positive? What's the motivation behind it? Why would they do that? Just is funding tied to this?
All right, let me ask y'all some questions and let y'all answer here, okay?
Okay.
Why did Mississippi move to an A, B, C, D, F school identification based upon the accountability model? Why are we using A, B, C,
because
D, and F?
parents said we need an empirical method to measure whether our teachers are teaching, our administrators are administering, and creating a learning environment for kids. The end product is that our kids, if they're being taught, if they're being provided schools administered properly, the test scores should bear this out. So
That's correct.
okay.
That's correct.
So I answered
So,
that question. What's your next question?
Well, based on paper, right?
Well, but yeah, and
So
that's what
what
I'm
you're
saying.
going
If
to do
it,
is it's really going to make some schools look really good, and it's going to make some schools look really bad, so that you can choose which schools you want to send your children to.
well, there
Well,
you
we're
go.
not
That's
really allowed to, if you're talking about a public school system, you're not really allowed to just send your children to whichever school you want to send them to, are you?
Well, would you move to, if you were going to move back into Mississippi, and let's just say that you
Oh,
moved
yeah.
into,
I would look at that. I would look at that.
oh, you would.
Mhm. I would want
So,
some
but
test to let me know, litmus, something to let me
something I
know.
can use to measure. That's right.
Yeah.
I understand that. But
okay.
what's going to happen when the real test scores start showing back up, and the letter designation for the test scores starts being more accurately reflected?
Well,
If
it's
what's
just for
happening
a
now
year
does
there
not
now.
accurately
See,
do
it's
what?
just for a year. If you look over the last 7 to 8 years, this will be an anomaly, but it's because the test scores were measured against the COVID years where the scores were down, which showed a lot of improvement in the grades. So therefore, the school winds up. The cut scores is if your score scores a certain score, you will be an A school district.
Okay.
But
But it sounds like, wait a minute. It sounds like you said that was artificially adjusted to quote account for the COVID years. Well, why? Why weren't test scores accurately reflected and simply explained as the reason test scores are down? Kids were kept out of school. They had to do a lot more remote learning, etc. Why would they just stick to the truth?
Well, I think what
well,
I heard Kim
it would
say,
not be politically correct, Keith,
and I think I also heard what you were saying to mean
because
that it was positive publicity. It
it's
was
positive
positive.
publicity for the schools. They can come. These districts that have been D, C, and F, all of a sudden says, uh, we're an A school district now. Hey, come go to our school.
Mm-hmm.
We're back to, because all prior to this year or this last year's scores, it's kind of been a negative for that school district. So they're going to tout it.
Yeah.
But reason that they didn't do that, Keith, and they didn't stay with the test scores. Let's just say that you have a Madison Central or a Pearl or a school like that's been an A school district. All of a sudden, because of COVID, they dropped down to a D or C school district.
But the truth is still the truth.
That ain't politically correct.
Okay. All right.
Because
Look.
now then,
Oh no, you didn't.
well, but I
Well,
mean, so in order for to do that, if you score higher, you get the higher score. But because you hadn't been in school and you hadn't had an opportunity to teach them, how you gonna grade them normally if you hadn't had an opportunity to teach them?
all right. Look,
So you,
Mississippi is not the only state that does these standardized tests to measure are their kids being taught, are the administrators providing good environments for the kids to learn in. Mississippi's not the only one. I don't know of a state that does not have these standardized tests to measurement. I mean, the
that's
fact of the
correct.
matter is, COVID. Oh my gosh, y'all done got me started. All right, COVID hits. The biggest enemy, I hope everybody's listening, the biggest enemy to your child's education during COVID was teachers' unions. You agree or disagree?
Repeat your statement there, because
The
I was
biggest,
looking at how many it started, like with 19, Anyway, go ahead. I was looking-
JT's putting up some interesting things here. The number of F districts
Exactly.
declined from 19 to just 5. A whopping 16 districts managed to improve by at least 2 grades from D to B, including Hattiesburg, Claiborne County, each of which improved 3 grade levels. Hattiesburg from a D to an A and Claiborne County from an F to a B. You know, that's significant. And that's propaganda.
Well,
Right.
that's what I'm talking about. You're
Yeah.
dealing with a lot of issues there that the school districts themselves have no control over.
Yeah.
So you're gonna hold them harmless is what Keith is what they're trying to do. And you're not
Well-
going, I mean, because they're not going to have a full year of growth.
No.
All right.
It was a bad
no.
situation all around, period.
I
I mean,
agree it was a
they're
bad
doing the
situation,
best they can. So what we got is an anomaly for 1 year. So what's going to happen next year, Keith? When they have last year's scores, and then this year we will be measuring against last year's scores, that everybody was an A or B.
does that have to happen? I mean, why doesn't each year stand alone? Why doesn't
Well,
each year?
It does to a certain degree.
Okay.
Because you can go up or down based on your scores, but those
Okay.
scores.
Yeah, remember Kim said the model puts more emphasis on improvement, measuring the improvement or the decline rather than the actual score.
Based on the bell curve, pretty much, you should have, based on the, I keep using these terms, cut scores. There's a set, and I don't know what they are, but there's cut scores out there. Based on those, on that bell curve, there should be approximately so many A's, so many B's, so many C's, so many D's, and so many F's. So that each year, though, the cut scores go up, which means it will be harder next year for the A schools districts to stay as a school unless their
Really
scores
do a great
increase.
job. Yeah.
You know, and we've already picked up graduation rate is included in that. The number of accelerated courses, dual credit courses, AP courses, and that you offer and that students take. So there's other ways to improve your test scores because they want you to offer more and better classes at each school. And if you do that, the level of education and the level of your students should get better, right?
Should.
But that also raises your test scores. But every time you raise your test scores,
It can hurt you the following year
in order to stay at that level.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I understand perfectly what you're saying.
So what they're trying to do is gradually raise Mississippi's score. And we've done, Mississippi has done a very good job overall in that process. Now, Keith and Sonara, y'all know we've talked about why test, why standardized testing? Because is it measuring their skills, their abilities, their application skills?
Well, from state to state, I guess it would be the emphasis that the state Board of Education put on why they're testing. I mean, you know, in some, when you look at it on a national level, I mean, some of them, they're just trying to see, can they put a kid out into the stream of commerce that can add, subtract, and multiply and divide.
And
I mean, they're not trying to say how many Rhodes Scholars do we have. We're just trying to make sure that we don't let them out of here if they can't read or write. You know, and that's a problem in itself. I mean, I read a statistic about how many freshmen entering college can't read above a fifth grade level. They can't comprehend above a fifth grade level. So, you know, many times you're talking about standardized test scores, at least at the high school level. They're just trying to see, are you functional?
Okay. Go to a school district that is in a large city where there is right now, if I'm not mistaken, they're talking about not boycotts, but for higher wages.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're averaging a little over $100,000 a teacher, but
that sounds like Chicago or one of those school
what is
districts.
at what grade level are they graduating? Reading and math. Or check out Washington, D.C. schools, which is our nation's capital, and see what they're, because you brought up something a while ago, Keith. How much of this is towards teacher unions?
Well, that's what I say. You know, when people think of unions, I mean, I've got friends and relatives that are union, that are non-union. Love them all dearly. And back in the days of troubled times, they're trying to work for better living, better working conditions, better hours.
Did a great
job. There were noble things there, but when you look at teachers unions, Chrestman, they're not trying to promote benefits for teachers. They have completely gone over to the dark side, and they're trying to talk about transgenderism and sexualizing third graders, and that's what the teachers unions are promoting, and it has very little to do with education.
So,
and that's why I say teachers unions, when COVID hit, and you check all across the country, as each state, well, let's go a little lower, as each city and or each state would start relaxing the close contact rules, okay?
Gotcha.
Everybody was for it. Everybody was for it, except teachers unions. The teachers were not wanting the COVID restrictions to be relaxed.
So what is the number one indicator or one of the main reason you have student success? What is the significant difference?
If I had to put a finger on it, it is number one, a belief that education is a worthy thing to possess. And the person who needs to believe that is the parents. Two-parent household, two-parent households that have standards, two-person households that participate in how making decisions about their children's educations, the quality of it, the depth of it. Are they being taught by teachers and administrators who are doing nothing more than teaching to the test? Or are they trying to teach?
Indicator. Number one significance is the classroom teacher.
Okay, that's good.
And probably the second one is exactly what you're talking about. Is we call this parental involvement in the child's education. But down here in Mississippi, a lot of times that's means the parents coming up to school and chewing on the administrator and the teacher because they have mistreated the child.
The little darling.
Well, so that's parental involvement down here in Mississippi sometimes versus what you were talking about. And
I want to get into that later. Yeah.
Yeah, well, but anyway, but back to the test scores type things. They're important. We need that.
Yes. All right. Here's what I want to put in front of you, and I want you to knock it down. The whole system, because there's so much that is dependent on the test scores, the whole system is structured more to teach the kids to pass the test and hit those cut scores, as you call them, rather than truly educating kids for critical thinking that they're going to need out in the stream of commerce.
Okay.
Knock me down.
Understand. Okay, let me share this. Okay, how is your teaching driver's education? What is the number one thing that you are going to be measured by in driver's education?
If you can pass the test.
Do what, Sonora?
If you can pass the test.
Pass the
If
driving
you can
test.
pass the driver's test so that you can get a license, you're measured by whether or not you can pass the test. This is our whole thing.
It should be if you can drive mama's car without wrecking it, but that's not
exactly. Okay, now then, go take that into teachers even. You can get a certificate. Does that make you a good teacher?
No,
Keith,
not necessarily.
you've been around it. You can ask our good
I've
friend
had my-
Marcus Burks on that
I've had my own certificate. I used to be a teacher. That's why education is a very dear subject to me. And yes,
I thought you were trying to prove that meant you weren't necessarily a good teacher there for a second.
I thought I wasn't going to say that. Sonora.
We weren't going to say nothing, bud.
I'm not going to say. I wasn't going.
Hey, all I'll say is I'll let my students and my ball players.
We know you were a good teacher. We just have to give you a hard time.
So, what we're teaching? Are we educating or are we training?
That's that wall I put up in front of you. I want you to knock it down. What are we doing? Because I'm sitting here saying
gets back to the very core question of education is why do we have a public education system? And I wrote down a quote from our founding fathers that we needed a well-educated, moral citizenry who can self-govern. That was the original. Thank you so much, JT. Look there. I feel like the applause was for me.
All right. You said well-educated.
Well-educated, moral citizenry who can self-govern. Who can self-govern. Mm-hmm. So we used to be teaching
Chrestman,
people.
Let me tell you something. You know who some of the stupidest, these stupidest people that can ever be put on TV? They're going to a college or university right now. They're going to a college or university right now. You ought to see some of the stupidest stuff they can say.
Well, all right. Now then, since you did that, I want you to define education then, or educated. If I'm going to educate Keith Shelton, what does that mean? That you are educated.
You are exposing me to facts, bodies of knowledge that I need, but you're not just giving me rote facts in a vacuum. You're also trying to encourage me and give me systems and tools and challenges that will make me learn how to use those facts to come to conclusions that I'll need in the future.
See, my definition of a good education would be teaching someone how to think. Yeah. Critical thinking, teaching someone how to think.
Without saying critical thinking, I thought that was what I was describing. Yeah. Education has to involve facts.
Sure.
Okay? You got to have knowledge. You got to have information. You got to have data. But is that wisdom?
No.
Well, no, that's not wisdom. That's taking critical thinking that your school teachers, we hope, would be helping you develop so that then you can learn how to apply that in ways that are beneficial to you, your family, your community, your church, your nation, your state, the world. You look at all the entrepreneurs that have made names for themselves that are well known to our society. In many cases, they were terrible students. Yeah. They weren't getting anything out of the school system.
Let's see. What about Einstein and some of those other folks like that?
Oh yeah.
I guarantee you, Einstein would have been smart whether he went to school or not.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I thought he dropped out. I'm not sure.
That's what I thought too.
Well, let me ask you this: numbers. How you say it? STUPID.
Are you keep? Oh, you had your. Wait a minute, JT. You had your headphones off, and he said it 2 more times when you had your headphones off. You missed it.
And you missed the first. Spell stupid right.
Okay.
You left out the P.
Stupid.
The thing about educating is you got to have all of that. But it's just like if I have been trained or on a Chevrolet to tear down and fix a motor, what happens if a Dodge comes in and I have to fix it?
Well, you should have learned a lot of principles and systems of connectivity that would be applicable to any four-stroke internal combustion engine, and
so I should be able to have and transfer my knowledge and understanding from one thing to another, whether I have not.
Except for any specific facts that would be unique to the Dodge that were not like it on the Chevrolet. But 90% of it should be, the system should be the same.
But what if I have a manual that I can pull out of that pocket, or a manual over here that says, for this, you do it this way? Should I be able to read that manual and transfer knowledge to be able to fix that Dodge?
Well, of course.
Then you're educated.
Exactly.
I think we all agree that there's a basic set of skills that education has to address early on. I don't know what the cutoff would be, but you need to know how to read. You need to know how to do math. You need to know how, there's some basic skills that you need. Well, and then you should be able to take those. But past about the 8th grade, I don't even know what we're doing.
All right, let me ask you this, Keith. Keith, you're a math major. Why don't we teach math?
Why? Because math is everywhere. Math is involved in almost all the disciplines: geology, archaeology, cosmology.
Okay.
Medicine.
Next question.
Okay.
What part does it play in education, though?
Well, you're talking about your basic
Y'all done answered that, but I'm not going to tell you. I wasn't going to be that nice to you. I was going to let you.
Well, some mathematics should be basic and should be taught no matter what you're doing. But after a certain level, you can start taking more advanced mathematics of some types that would be more appropriate to medicine, statistics and probability.
Education to the general public.
Yeah. Because like I said,
it makes you it gives you critical thinking. It trains the brain for critical thinking.
That's true. I'm a big proponent of that.
So everything you do, it's not just math. You're training the brain how to problem solve.
Yes. Yeah.
You see that?
I hope so.
You're educating a kid.
But what about
not
when
just
we're
learning how to work a problem and get the right answer?
Yeah, exactly. But that's the criticism.
Math is a good, maybe a good example of that, because math is math. But you get off into some of the other subjects, and you start being taught the wrong thing. Do you know that in Japan, our daughter-in-law is Japanese, that they're actually taught facts about the United States that we were like, that is not true. That is not true. That they are taught that in their textbooks as fact. So you do have indoctrination in schools.
Propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
Agendas. So you do have that. So I think math is kind of a different animal, because how are you going to pollute math?
Well, you got four basic. Hey, you got 4 basic functions, right, Keith? What are they?
Add, subtract, multiply, and divide.
With fractions, whole numbers,
same.
Integer.
Positive and negative numbers.
So when you get into calculus, how many? You still have those same 4?
No, there's it gets broader, but that was the point I was making. When you're talking about for the general public, there should be a certain level of math that is taught all throughout. And then when you reach the top of that level, then people would need to start specializing depending on whatever fields they think they're going to go into. But Kim, what we're talking about is the criticism of modern American education is kids are not coming out of school learning even some of the most basic stuff. It's like I said, college administrators. This is. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I've seen this alleged. College administrators say we are getting students in first year courses cannot read, cannot do basic math, cannot write complete sentences. I mean, we're talking about 18 and 19-year-olds.
And paying $35,000 to $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
Rephrase that. They're borrowing 35 and so that they can get student loans done away with.
Well, Kim, though, they're products of the lower grade education system. So where are we going wrong? Why?
All right, let me go a couple of things here. I want to read a couple of things. Y'all kind of give me your feedback. Schooling. Schools and teachers pouring learning into the students, like the bank, bank account, you get more poured in it, filled up with knowledge, rather than catering to their needs or their careers. Is that what we do? Try to pour all of this stuff into a kid, like morals and values? I know, Sonora, you had brought that up a little bit while ago. I don't think you may not have used those terms, but
the founding fathers said, that we wanted an educated, moral citizenry that could self-govern.
I wrote that down somewhere, but it's yes, that's where I was. Moral. Mm-hmm. Are we obligated to teach morals?
Obligated? No, but if you're smart, you do your best to teach morals. I'm talking about from
I want to disagree. I want to say yes, we're obligated to teach morals. Whether you put a Christian spin on your morals or what, everybody on the face of the earth can agree on what a moral is, what's moral and immoral to a certain point.
No, that's not true.
Wait.
That's not true, Sonora.
That might be true. That might be true these days. I keep thinking about, my school experience, and your school experience and Keith's school experience is not the same experience that kids are having now.
That's correct. Because of
the
culture and the national standards, because of whose values. Courts, civil rights, the value system.
Okay, stop right there. Civil rights says you can do whatever you want to do, be whoever you want to claim to be, think whatever you want to think. I don't have to agree with you. That's what's wrong. The people who are trying to run the schools saying, you teacher, you have an obligation to learn the pronouns of each one of your students, and then you have to adopt those pronouns. Don't be calling it, them, and,
so Sonora,
by he or she, because you can get in trouble, school teacher. That is horseshit.
Sonora,
yes.
Whose values and morals are you going to teach?
Well, the country was founded on Christian Judeo, morals and standards, but I guess that's all gone now. That's all gone. Keith,
y'all saw that where he said, get out, right? Y'all have to remember now, I'm white, male, and Christian, and I'm old too. So I'm out.
I'm out too. I keep thinking that the world operates on the same
but Kim,
system we used to.
We still have to produce kids that can function. There are no American born, I can't say there's none. Statistically, There are no American-born doctoral candidates in any of the major universities in our country. They're all foreign-born. Why? Because our internal education systems are failing greatly, failing mightily.
Okay,
At
Keith,
preparing our kids to go into the do what?
You're bringing up 2 points here I'd like to address, if you don't mind.
That's why you're on. That's why you're here, buddy.
You said a lot of Americans are not going into the higher
They
fields,
can't. They
correct?
can't qualify.
Most of them, because they're not there, right? Now then, but our doctoral programs are filled up with foreigners.
Correct.
From India, China, Japan,
India, China, Asia, Singapore, you name it. They're not. Okay. Most of them are not coming from South America. No, they're not.
So, okay, next question. So we already recognize that fact that not there. So we're also having a problem of our students scoring high enough to get into those higher level
and
careers.
That's my point. Why are we failing our kids? Have our kids gotten that stupid? Is that the problem? They're not capable. Their brains, what are they born with? Half brains now? Is that what's wrong with them?
They are comfortable.
They're comfortable. They, C's good enough, B's good enough. Oh, by the way, they're not counting absences hardly anymore because you can't make them come to school. And but it's kind of like those test scores that we were talking about. You can't let them fail either. We also getting that pressure for no fail grades. We got students that if they can make 20 to 30 on the test, but you got to give them, because it's school policy, that you got to give them no lower than a 50.
Then Chrestman, have we just decided we're not even really going to have an educational system? We're going to have a babysit system? Is that what we're really doing?
Keith, we're babysitting?
Well, that's what you're talking about. We're not educating them. Now you're giving reasons why that make it hard to educate them. Granted, I'm agreeing with you. I'm not disputing you. I'm just saying, but is that an education system?
Let me throw a question in here. Let me throw a little monkey wrench in. Should parents consider, rather than a public education, a private school or even a religious or a Christian school? Is that something that parents should consider, or should they, let's even throw in a little homeschooling? Should they consider homeschool? What are your thoughts on that, Kim? Loaded question.
Highest performing students. Homeschool, private school, public education.
Across the spectrum or selective?
Yeah, it could be selective because you can find some private schools that have the money and they get the high-end students and all the test scores do great, function great.
I'm not sure I understood. Were you saying which
basically
choice
private.
Would give you
basically
the
homeschool
private
kids do really, really well.
Well, that brings us to some other questions though, because there's a downside, I think, to everything, but of course to homeschool, that would probably be the socialization, of children, and that you can train through insulation rather than, having them already out there and learning how to deal with the world. They're going to wind up in the world, but there's also a way that you can homeschool that will teach your children how to navigate, those things. So, and that's the same with the public school.
Homeschool associations where you can have that. You can also socialize at school, in sports.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of ways that you can get a lot of that if you want it.
Yeah.
But a lot of that goes back to the parents, as Keith talked about earlier, and their involvement in that, and the education of the parents, because a lot of parents can't teach the homeschool.
They can't, but we've seen that with some of our grandchildren. Keith and I have quite a few, but We've seen that with some of them that have chosen to homeschool, and they have very supportive community. Oh goodness, JT.
But he's right on that
He is.
e-learning, because
He is. Yeah,
there's a
but
lot of
they
schools that after COVID the first year, the next year, they just did all e-learning. Why? It's easier.
yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
have to deal with students.
Yeah,
You
they
just
didn't want
put
them to
out some
come back.
paperwork and let them do it.
Yeah.
Don't have
But, you know,
worry about overflowing trash cans and.
But to finish what I was saying, they don't have they don't stay at home all the time. This homeschool system they go to somebody else's house for math. They have they have sports that they're involved in. They have socialization at church, of course, and just teach, but not to just insulation. I think is dangerous.
I agree. But
I think
because
navigation
sooner or later they're going to hit the real world.
Yeah.
And
But then I don't know that
to,
we have to worry about that, Kim, as much as we used to, because look at what they're being bombarded with through the internet.
Well, I was just fixing to mention that you can send them to school, but then when they get out, everybody's got a cell phone. First of all, pornography is available on demand there. And then you got all the TikTokers. Then you got Twitter or X. Then you got what's some of the rest?
YouTube. We've got a clip we want to play, just a short portion of, because this is going to illustrate, and just listen to the voice of the person that's doing this particular video. This is geared toward children. If you don't believe it, just watch. Can you play that for us, JT?
Could you be a crystal child? Highly psychic and sensitive, with magnificent eyes where people can see the universe in you? If people tell you that your energies and auras are glowing, bright, and radiant, then this video will help you explore your unique spiritual gifts. Crystal children are known to follow their hearts as idealists in a world limited and troubled by the material world.
That's good, JT. We could play more of this, but you get the idea.
Computer generated, all programmed to, yeah.
Yeah, it's scary. That just sends chills. And how many of our teachers are actually dealing with a mindset that's being, behind all this, not just to children, because if you watch the video and you go through it, it's also speaking to parents. And what parent that has a child doesn't want to think they're special? That doesn't want to think, oh, well, I've got a crystal child. That's why mine can't sit still. That's why mine can't mind. They're ethereal. They're psychic. They can see all this. And then the teacher's just calling and saying, hey, little Johnny won't stop talking while I'm talking. And the next thing you know.
Not only that, they could be like JT, sleeping in class or not showing up to school.
I was about to say,
girls instead of learning. And
hey, I have a vivid memory of kindergarten. The new girl that came to class first day, I made her my girlfriend. So that was a solid memory in my core memories. I was going to tell you, I interviewed a person this week that works in the school system.
Okay.
They're a teacher, and they have a child that basically their parental figures or whatever are tied heavily into some organizations that are protective against kids with disabilities or things like that. And so one of the problems she had is like, this kid was just off the walls, just causing a rampage in the class, and she can't do anything about it, because if she does, she could get in trouble. She could get reprimanded. The school could get reprimanded, get fined. And so but really,
not only that, you would be wind up in court.
Mm-hmm.
and the judge would, because of federal laws of equality, you're required to have them in there, and you can't send them home either.
Right. And this, all the other kids are suffering because, now the teacher has to let the kid
teach.
The teacher has to let this kid do this while, she's trying to teach the other kids, and, it makes it hard for teachers.
Almost impossible. Almost impossible. So
right.
He hit a great point there, because how do you educate everybody to where everybody is on the level that you two are on? That you've either got a high school diploma and you're functioning at the 12th grade level in math and in reading, whether you're sped, whether you've got developmentally delayed or whatever, or even if you have behavior problems and can't stay still, but you've got to, as a teacher in a school, educate everybody to the same level. And they got to succeed.
I think there's a couple of things going on here, though. I think that there's something that's happened where we've all been told, that we have to accept people how they are, and, that there's nothing that can be done about that or should be done about it. And we're selling, a lot of these kids are getting away with things that could be corrected if we were allowed to even address them. And I think they would be better off down the road. I think there are some that probably can't help it. And I thought that was why we had special classes where we could help people with learning disabilities and this, that, and the other. Is that not the case anymore?
Well, see, it's something called inclusion, because you mentioned socialization, which means you got to teach those in the regular classroom now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, here, let me ask you a simple question. This is. I'm just saying out loud what everybody that I talk to thinks, just like I do. Yeah. Are we asking too much of our school systems?
Yes.
All right. What's the solution?
That's the reason I talked about how can we teach all people. Remember now, George Bush brought in No Child Left Behind. And that says if you got enough resources and you got enough good teachers, that everybody can learn, just not at the same rate, but can get to the same level. We're back to kind of like an equity type thing in some ways. But
equal opportunity does not guarantee equal results. There's way too many factors that go into that. And what about the good students who try to be cooperative? They want to learn, but then they've got,
and
all these outside influences. How is a teacher supposed to, help that child? Or is public school? Kim, I'm going to tell you something. I've seen people, write entire articles on the premise that sending your kid to public school is a form of child abuse.
Yeah, in some cases I can see that, because the inner cities and type thing. It can be so violent, gangs and drugs, and if you send them there, Keith,
again, are we asking too much? Are we asking our schools to be policemen, anti-drug interdiction, spiritualist? On and on and on. What happened to reading, writing, and arithmetic? The 3 R's.
So, but we gonna teach them morals and values, Sonara, that you were talking about a while ago?
Well,
whose values and whose morals are you going to teach?
Well, that's even a problem if you decided to send your children to and I'm going to use air quotes, Christian school, where these are let's just say a religious school. Say I'm Baptist and I'm not going to send them to a Catholic school, even though that supposedly has some good morals and that's not the same theology that I want taught. So that's where I'm coming in and saying you have to parent. You have to be involved in everything, and you have to help your child navigate. They've got to learn how to respectfully disagree, to think for themselves, to self-govern,
Now then, take a child from a single parent home or living with their grandmother in the poverty culture, which is probably about what percent of our students in the United States, Keith?
I don't know.
30, 40% at least?
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
So
they're also the group that would be most likely to have multiple kids rather than simply replacing, two parents with one or two parents with two. The lower economic levels, many times one parent has 5 kids.
So what was your point to that, Kim? What were you
how
thinking?
are we going to educate all of them to the higher level?
So because they don't have the parental support, is that what you're saying?
Don't have the parental support,
or guidance.
You got yeah. I mean, hey, you may have in some families, you may have 5 to 6 kids living in a 1-bedroom apartment.
Well, I understand that, but there's so many success stories. J.D. Vance is one.
So you're
grew up in a very disadvantaged home.
Not equal outcome.
That's exactly what I'm saying. When you don't have an equal outcome, if you've done everything reasonable for the child, it's not your fault.
Somehow we've got to stop giving out participation trophies.
Boy, that's
which was back to why we're testing. How are you going to measure schools whether or not they're doing a good job of teaching the skills? So what would you measure? What would y'all say that you'd want to know your child as far as when he or she graduates? What do y'all want to know that they're able to do?
Graduating from high school?
Yeah.
What would I want to could do? Well,
I guess I would
want to know.
So we could be whether that show their success or where they're functioning at.
Well, more than anything, I definitely want to have some basic skills of reading, writing, and arithmetic. And I would want them to be critical thinkers and know how to get information for themselves and know how to educate themselves, because that's just the beginning of education. We're all old people here. We realize how far they have to go. And if I wasn't able to educate myself, I don't know that I would have grown any in the rest of my life. I think that'd be failure.
Well, see, that's the part. That's the reason you educate people. You teach them how to read, write, and arithmetic, so to speak. And then you teach them how to find information that they need and how to apply it in the real world with whatever their job or success, what they're doing in society. Because everybody's not going to be a mathematician.
You and I've talked about this before, Kim, that after a certain grade level, I usually use 8th grade, but about 8th grade level, we kind of need to revamp our whole education system, where there are academics, there are children that want to go on and they want to go further with physics. They want to go further with math or science or
chemistry.
Sure, we need doctors. We need all these things that have to have a higher.
Good point. Let me ask, because I'm gonna go back to something I mentioned a while ago. Should we lower the entrance exams or test scores for people to get in doctors because we have a shortage of doctors?
No.
Should we lower it?
No. Kim, that's the point I was making to you. Off the record, that was the point I was making to you. Some tests are trying to measure a minimum competency, and that's good. That's good.
It's minimal. Well,
do what?
It's minimal.
We're back to the participation trophy, and if we
and
have
that's
people
fine.
that
You're just trying to say, look, I don't want my school. I don't want my school handing a high school diploma to a kid that can't read past the second grade level, can't add, subtract, multiply, and divide numbers. I don't want that. So I can't balance a checkbook. I don't want my school doing that. So we have a standardized test that says, look, it's not hard to pass. It's very low standards, but you've got to meet at least these standards. They're minimal standards. Now, what you're talking about is what does it take to get into medical school? What does it take to get into engineering school? Now, you don't need to lower those standards. Those are not measuring minimum standards. They are measuring required proficiency and professionalism standards, and those should not be lowered.
Okay, let me.
JT's on here. JT's got something.
You know, when I pop on, I got something to say.
Yes, sir.
I only have a high school education.
You go, big man.
I did a little bit of college. You know, I was fortunate enough. I was training to go into the military for a little bit. I got really close, and I think Dad had talked me into going to Delta State. So I was in the aviation program there for a little while, and I was fixing to rack up 6 figures in debt to go start work at an airline that started me out at food stamp wages. This is before COVID, before there was a big pilot shortage. So
I understand.
I kind of stepped back from that and started kind of working in real estate, got my real estate license, you know, started doing that, working with Keith and his law firm for a bunch of different developers. And now I am working a pretty high level position for a big real estate development firm with a high school education. What do y'all have to say? What do y'all have to say to those people who want to go that route? That, you know, racking up a big bill to try to go work in work in an office for minimum wage. But
great point there, because first of all, JT is educated.
This
He
is
can
Mama.
read.
That's his daddy right there. We raised a good one.
But he can read, write, and do arithmetic.
Absolutely.
The kid is not dumb. He can do what he wants to do. When you want to learn something, you can do it. In other words, if I want to weld, I can learn welding, Keith. If I want to do math,
and you're saying the word want.
I can learn math.
And
but if
want
I don't
to
give
do
a
it.
rip about math, or I don't give a rip about welding, you can put me in that class all you want to. And I'm not going to function. Matter of fact, I may be that student that sits back there and talks and gives the teacher fits. Well,
Chrestman, why have we developed a system that is nothing but a cookie cutter? Everybody all fits the same mold. Why can't it be more like Sonara said and be like the German school system or the Japanese school system that says you get a common core of basic education up to a certain point, and then if you don't qualify to go into high school, you don't go to high school. If you don't qualify to go into college, you don't go on. If you don't qualify to go into your master's programs or your doctor's programs, you don't get to go on. You are diverted into what you think you do want to do. If you want to be a factory worker and learn auto mechanics, man, they're going to educate you to the hilt. But that's what you're going to be educated on.
Keith, you know, back when you and I was going to school, if we didn't want to go to school, we could go out and get us a job, couldn't we?
We sure could. What are you coming along and saying
you are required in Mississippi to stay until you're 17? You can't drop out. And you can't take the GED because many was going to the GED route so they could get out and go to work.
Yeah.
Or just to get out of school because they didn't want to be in school.
Then let me go back to one of the basic questions I asked way a while ago. Why have we let this kind of an educational system be what is controlling in this country?
Okay. Let me read something to you here. I looked up today.
Okay.
Education prepares and empowers individuals for an active and productive life. It is geared to the economic productivity of the country, and the curriculum is planned accordingly for economic growth of the country.
Well, Chrestman, let me assure you, if you borrowed $200,000 and you got a degree in underwater basket weaving, somebody lied to you, and somebody lied to you badly.
So
But that's what
why?
we're putting out.
So
We have
why
so
are
many liberal art degrees of some of the most outlandish names of degrees, and have
understand?
gone quarters of millions of dollars in debt to get those degrees. That
Okay,
if they
Keith.
go to work at all, most of them went back to live in mama and daddy's basement. Okay. But if they went to work at all, none of them went to work in the field they're in that they got their degrees in. They were totally worthless. Why did we create this system?
Why do we have and offer degrees that take 4 to 5 years that could be done in 2?
Oh, I agree with that.
We can go, the internet can make an algorithm for Facebook that will predict what you're going to look at, what you're going to buy, what you're going to do. But we can't change the education system. And what I wanted to go ahead, Kim.
It is made and it is geared towards making money.
I understand that, but we're
It
not.
is an industry. And now you look at college in today's culture, you are looking at why do they go to school? So they can party for football. Are they really going for an education? To go to work, to become productive citizens?
Right.
I just think that system, even by that standard that it's created for the economics of the country, I just think that that's broken. And I think that if we held out early on when kids were coming out of the 8th grade, look, you got to kind of qualify for this stuff. Like, you think about what I was talking about earlier about, the participation trophy. If you know you're going to have to sit on the bench, you're going to try harder. So let's hold out there. Let's let you qualify for these things. Put it on them to self-govern themselves. Kids can do this. Self-govern yourself.
We did, and it was a lot better. So here's the thing. You can't discipline students anymore. You can't correct students anymore. You can't make them do anything, and they won't do anything. So we've already taught them not to work, and that we're going to pay them not to work, and we're going to give them we're going to pay off the loans for them. So you see the politics back behind it.
All right, here's let me throw this out. This is the last thing. Oh my gosh, it's Chrestman, we could go on for hours.
I could keep going.
Here's the last thing. There's a big push in certain conservative circles to do away with the federal Department of Education. And President-elect Trump finally came out and said that is going to be one of his agenda items.
Yep.
Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you that empirically, you cannot show $1 worth of value spent that produced increased test scores, increased performance in you name it, chemistry, physics, engineering, anything, where Americans have scored better over time than Americans used to score. So here's what conservatives say. Why are we wasting money on a federal Department of Education when every state already has its own departments of education? because the criticism is the federal Department of Education does more indoctrination and social engineering and social programming than supporting classroom teachers around the country, and that those dollars can be better spent, either turned back to the state departments of education, or don't waste the tax dollars at all. What are your thoughts on that? And we're going to let that be the last topic we cover tonight.
Okay, because the federal government has their finger in everything. If you don't do what they say, DEI, civil rights, all these
Pronouns,
all
letting boys dress up like girls and go
they
into.
won't get the federal money.
Right.
So there's a lot of that, but there's also a need to standardize certain requirements that schools should have, regardless if you're in California or Mississippi.
Yeah.
And you think the state school boards aren't smart enough to figure out what standards they need to set for their kids? Why does the federal? Why do we need an entire federal bureaucracy to tell California how to educate their kids, or tell Mississippi, or tell Texas, or tell Rhode Island, or tell South Dakota? Why? Why should that come from the federal level?
Because the whole education in the United States is a money-making business.
That's the reality, isn't it?
There's so much money in it. Every 5 years, they're going to change a curriculum, change a book, so you're going to have to do what? And then you throw in staff development, then you throw in new books, then you throw. So the whole answer is, I won't go back to something that I think we've been talking about. If we would just teach education, let parents teach the value systems that they want, but we must have discipline, we must have order, and the students must obey and follow the rules. Right now, they're not following the rules. They don't. They do what they want to do, and then parents come up there and take up for the kids. We got a lot of good students, got a lot of smart students in every race and all the genders and all that, but we got to have school. We got to. How would you do it? Coaching, discipling. What would you call it, Keith?
Well, Kim, here's what I'm going to tell you. We've run out of time tonight. We've run a little bit over, but man, I mean, this is the reality of our school system. And how many years you been doing it? Since 1979? Yeah, 1979.
78. Huh? 78.
Okay. Fall of 78, you entered the school systems.
38 and a half years.
38 and a half years. You've been a classroom teacher. You've been a coach. You've been a principal. You've been a school superintendent of several school districts. You've been a consultant school district for how many years you've been doing that now? 8 or 10, 12, something like that?
I didn't do that but a couple of years.
Oh, okay.
And just small, but vocational,
technology. My point simply is you've seen it all.
Yeah.
All right. When we bring you back on, we've talked a lot about what's wrong. I want you to present, next time we have you on, I want you to present your model school. What would
Kim's
it look
world.
like?
Kim's world.
That's right. That's right. Kim's world. What would the model school, and I'm talking about from preschool to elementary school, middle school, high school, college, graduate programs. What would our educational system look like for a child that's born in Kim's world?
Can I shorten it up just a little bit and give you a little heads up on it?
Give us a little heads up on it. Give him the last
word.
Give us
a heads up. But I want our next time we have you on, I want you to present what you believe would be the solution to the problems we covered tonight.
And we're going to mute mine and Keith and JT's microphone, and we're going to let you talk next time.
No, you won't. No, Keith won't do it. All right, let me ask you this. Why make people go to school when they don't want to go to school? If you don't want to be there, you ain't going to learn.
No, and you're probably
You don't
going to
want
stop
to.
other kids from learning.
The other thing is, if you can't behave and you can't follow directions, it's going to be hard for you to stay in my school.
Well, that's the way it was when we were coming up. You didn't get to disrupt the teacher. You didn't get to keep other kids from learning just because you wanted to be special.
Well,
Well,
but they
surely
got
at
to.
some
Hey,
point
but
we
in
have
my
to.
school,
We can't let kindergartners make this decision. So you're
No.
talking about 8th grade or something like at that point,
well,
right?
close.
Okay.
But even kindergartners, because I've had them. I've been in a school that kindergartens could sit down and eat their meals without being disruptive and running around and throwing food.
Well, yeah.
And they can get in the line and they can walk. They can do technology. They can write in sentences, full, complete sentences in the kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
So why can't all of them?
Mm.
Well, it's just like
I
you said, though,
understand.
Kim.
So
You
my
can't
school
paddle, you
has-
can't discipline, you can't remove them from the classroom. Who came up with those rules? And those weren't the rules we went to school under. I mean, I can tell you right now, I had a coach who'd grab me up by my neck right here, and he'd pull my nose to about that far away from his nose, and he would put the fear of God in me.
Well,
Thank goodness they didn't have this system they have now.
If anybody had ADHD coming through school, it was me. But I'm gonna tell you something. When a school teacher or a principal or a coach needed behavior modification out of me, they knew how to make it happen.
Well,
but you can't do that these days. Isn't that what you just said?
Well, what I said was, you got to follow. You got to have, in order to stay there and be in school, you got to function in a certain way, and you got to succeed. If you don't, then we got a school over here for you. And then we got a school over here for you. So what I'm saying is, and hey, they don't want to come to school. You can't make them. You can't make them learn. You can't pour it in their head. But students who want to learn and have the opportunity to learn, and you got a good teacher, the sky's the limit.
I agree. That's the way it ought to be.
You can go teach anything you want to.
But Kim,
I could be a good teacher with those students, though, Keith.
Yeah, I could too.
Exactly. So, why can't we take the students who want to learn, who want to be productive, and help them get to where they can qualify for those doctoral programs in a few more years? Why? Because they're held back. If the parents don't make certain things happen so that child is either pulled out of that school and put in another environment, or they take over the educational system themselves, those children are disadvantaged. Not that they are disadvantaged socially or any other way. They're just disadvantaged because they're not getting.
Some of them are disadvantaged already because they come out of poverty, or they come out of a single parent family. But then you said a while ago that, and I have.
There's too many examples of people who've overcome all that and they excelled.
Which is why I put in an alternative school, and I had a lot of success with kids who wanted to learn. I had kids that were 100% dropout, and they graduated from high school with a regular diploma. And they were in the 7th and 8th and 9th grade, they were 100% dropouts.
Mm-hmm.
But they wanted to learn. I retaught them how to succeed in school. I taught them how to study. And I didn't do it for them.
Mm-hmm.
I did not spoon feed them.
Somewhere or another, there has to be self-motivation. Somewhere it's got to come. Otherwise, it's like we said a while ago, you can't force it into them. They got somewhere. There's got to be a spark of desire.
I just have to say though that has to be at a certain point, but it can't be in the very beginning. I mean, children are not able to say any more than they're able to say, in my opinion, what their gender is.
And then you still got learning disabilities in there, which like dyslexia and ADHD and everything.
There's nothing wrong with helping them.
Well,
There's nothing wrong with helping them at all.
I'm just saying there's got to be a basic education requirement before we even get into these facts. I mean, every child needs to at least have that basic requirement down by a certain time. And if they can't, then they probably do have a learning disability, or they've got emotional issues or something else that need to be put somewhere that somebody can help them, because that's educating our society.
Okay. Now then, back to what we were talking about earlier today. Started off with state testing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every child is tested. Even the SPED, even the person who has a learning disability that has dyslexia.
Sure.
Everyone is tested, and they're tested at their grade level.
Mm-hmm.
They can function on a second grade level and be in the 8th grade, but they take an 8th grade test.
Well, okay.
Is that fair?
My question is, how did they get there? How did they get in the 8th grade if they haven't shown the proficiency of the 7th grade to graduate out of the 7th grade to get to the 8th grade? That's where we're going back to fundamentals, Kim.
Keith,
go ahead.
Special education, special programs. Exactly what's an RA.
There's nothing wrong with that. If the resources are there, put it to them. But how are they in the 8th grade being tested at the 8th grade level when they're not 8th grade students? If they're special ed, why are they not tested as special ed students who have to be measured on the progress they are actually able to make? What's wrong with that?
Because that's exactly what they're trying to measure. Because some schools don't do anything in SPED, so there's no growth. But see, now you're required to test them, as in all students.
Well, isn't that the everybody fits the same mold program?
Hey, have you seen that one? That's a good. Have you seen the cartoon where it's got the elephant, the monkey, the chicken, the rabbit, the horse, and the test is to see who can climb the tree?
Oh, bless.
Oh, yeah.
Hadn't seen that one.
Oh, wait, but so testing in itself is a big issue. I don't have knowledge enough or understanding enough or the ability. And if I did, I'd be making $1 million. How do you educate everybody almost to the same level?
You can't.
And how do you test it?
That's what Denora said a while ago, Kim. Japan doesn't do it. They don't try to do it. Germany doesn't do it. They don't try to do it. Why do we do it? Because our is getting worse and worse. It don't matter how you measure it. It's getting worse and worse every year.
That's it right there.
Here we go. JT found a fair selection of United States
JT.
standards. Please climb that tree. Oh my goodness, yeah.
But that is public education testing.
Yeah.
Okay. Kim, it's been great. You get me fired up. I mean, let me tell you something. We get more comments. We get more emails over the subject of education.
Yep.
And
it affects every person, every culture. Hey, and then just stop thinking of what's happening right now with our immigration.
Oh my God, that's breaking some school systems right now, Kim.
Y'all, we're gonna have to mute y'all. We're gonna have to mute you.
Look,
Y'all can't keep going.
You've got 5,000 population cities having 5,000 illegal aliens imposed on the public services of a 5,000 population city, and it's breaking them. It's
Oh, by the
breaking
way,
them.
Keith, you hadn't even addressed the different languages.
Oh my gosh, yes. How many interpreters you going to have that the school needs for a teacher? And when you have to have an interpreter, it slows down the teacher.
But Keith,
Goes back. Whoa!
Keith,
It goes back to the problem I said, which is all you're doing is holding some others back because you have somebody somewhere has imposed.
JT said he took 3 years of Spanish and he can't speak a lick of Spanish.
So, all that is mandated that you are required.
There's your word
no
right there.
child
Mandated.
left
Where in the
behind
hell did common sense go? Who decided that needed?
I use the mute button. How you like
Hey,
that? I use the mute button. I use the
okay.
mute button. Does that tell you anything, Keith Shelton?
So anyway, because you're required to, you have to provide it for all kids. So even those, let's just say the 5,000 that Keith was talking about, you've got to, as a school district, to provide the resources and the people in order to meet the needs of those students.
And you're telling me about the horse shit. Somebody decided somewhere besides that little bitty town with the population of 5,000 people. Why?
Welcome to public education.
That is the absolute destruction of common sense. Why has that been allowed? Why? Somebody's mandating stuff that isn't even practically possible.
No child left behind.
Yeah, okay. That's
Well,
why.
Maybe we should have asked behind what?
Won a popular vote of almost 5 million people
and won
the electoral college is because people that's got common sense have said, we've had enough of this horse manure.
So Sonara, we hadn't even got into DEI and woke and TikTok and dress codes and colored hairs and all kind of alternative lifestyles.
Just every other distraction in the world, as if education needed another one. You know, I know.
That's my point.
That's terrible.
That's my very point. Who suffers? The kids that are there who wanted to learn. End of story. I said, where is the fix? Where is the cure? Because what we've created in this country is a monstrosity that Germany doesn't impose on its kids, Japan doesn't impose on its kids, and look Singapore, Indonesia, you name it. They don't let this crap happen.
But
that's our education system.
But we think we're the greatest country in the world, which we are. But
yes,
we had some idea that we could save everyone, but somebody got messed up on what they thought saving people was. This is not necessarily the best for everybody. Everybody's not happy under this system. You can look at the kids and see that.
So what they've done, they required us to be all things to all people.
A participation trophy.
Do that.
And we like you have unlimited resources.
And we haven't held anything out. We haven't held anything out.
About volume? Because I can barely hear y'all.
Wow. We're having some really bad weather. That may be what it is. Or God may be like cutting our mics because we're getting, I don't know.
Am I getting
all
too
right,
excited?
Keith, I'm going to work on that appropriate education issue.
Kim's World. We're frozen. Everybody's frozen but me.
No, I'm good. Kim,
okay.
what happened to you, buddy?
It's time to go.
I think
Time to go.
I think we lost Kim. I think his device probably just died.
It probably
goodness.
did. Yeah,
But
it probably
for those
did. That's okay.
for those who had just chimed in, Keith's not yelling. He's just passionate.
He is. And that's the first time I've ever had to use the mute button. But anyway,
we finally started.
I'm a former teacher. I'm a former coach. I taught a lot of kids that were better off today than they were yesterday, and I had a small part in that. I take great pride in that. I am proud of the kids that I influenced and taught or coached. And what we have today doesn't even allow for somebody like me to help and bring kids along. That's my complaint. And obviously, I'm not alone. I'm not alone.
If we could go across and just kind of give our complaints, I think my complaint would be that we are not doing justice to most of our kids past, 8th grade, because the ones that don't want to go on academically are being forced to be in there, and they're holding the academics back, and they're not happy because what they really want, like, for example, there are a lot of guys that would love to be, maybe a diesel mechanic or woodworking or a welder
or a plumbing contractor or an
they
electrician.
love that stuff, and we need those people. And why are they not being put into those vocations and apprenticed out with somebody, contributing at an early age? And the other thing I think would be my main complaint would be our higher education system, that unless you are going into certain professions where you need a higher level of education, a high school education is really sufficient to go out and make a very good living in the world.
Oh yeah, we talked about that before.
That would be my thing. JT, I know you got something. What you got?
No, I agree with you. The way the system is today, kids are racking up debt, starting out in jobs that they can't pay it off, and we just need to take a look at ourselves and say, do we need to go into a trade? Joe, what's his name from Dirty Jobs?
Mike Rowe.
Like Mike Rowe. Yeah, Mike Rowe is my hero.
Sure.
So.
I do want my doctor to go. I do want my doctor to go and get that surgeon to get that higher level of expertise.
Of course. You're the engineer that builds the next Golden Gate Bridge.
I want him to go.
Yeah, to be educated. I want him to have met certain educational requirements.
Even nurses, even people that do jobs like that. Yeah, that's necessary. Sure. Yeah.
But
maybe somehow looking at the system itself and saying, this could be a whole nother topic, but those universities that they go to for those medical degrees are sometimes big universities with big football teams, big campuses, big extracurricular activities going on that is a money driver for that school. And, some of these college tuitions are outrageous. And they're
outrageous.
You're paying for an experience rather than an education in some of them.
For sure.
I don't say that for all of them, but it's a big machine that definitely needs to be looked at and overhauled. And I definitely am interested in what maybe Trump and we'll see if he's going to appoint Elon Musk or not. But we'll see what Trump has to say about the national education system, the Department of Education.
Well, and the thing that prompted me and Kim to get really discussing the standardized test was the report that UCLA is lowering the standards of admission to its medical school. And
so that's a real thing. That's happening.
That's a real thing. Yeah, it was reported that UCLA is lowering its standards for admission to its medical school, and a lot of the alumni of that medical school is going, what in the world? Why would you do that? They weren't lowered when I had to get in, and that's what prompted us to talk about the standardized test score system and what are we really trying to measure. And the fact of the matter is when Kim was talking about it, it says, so that the DEI consideration is driving that decision.
Mhm.
Look, I
That's
don't
gotta
care if you're
go.
green and from Mars. I want a competent airline pilot. I want a competent doctor. I want I
Engineer.
don't care what color you are. I don't care what nation you came from. I don't care what your ethnic background is. I don't care what church you go to. I want whoever is the best and most qualified to be doing those things for me, building bridges, putting up skyscrapers, uh, trying to make better spacecraft and doing medical procedures and surgeries and things like that. I'm not the only one. 99.99999% of everybody I know feels exactly the way I do. They just don't care about all the stuff that the people who want to be the loudest in the media want to act like it needs to be. It's a bunch of crap.
Welcome to the Nobody's Business podcast, where we go deep down the rabbit hole.
Where we digress is our middle name.
Well, tonight is a record night. We went an hour and 40 minutes.
Oh no.
Anything y'all want to sign off with before we hop off?
I want
No,
to say I want to say one thing. I want to say that there is no immediate solution for this. Absolutely not. I know this is a long-term, problem, but one thing that people can do immediately is that they can come from a mindset of they were going to be more involved and know what their children are learning in whatever institution they're in, and they can start having their children navigate that, the indoctrination, the misinformation, whatever, and learning how to operate in the world and disagree respectfully, and have their own thoughts and not be so led by what's, being pumped into them. And I'm not saying to teach them disrespect at all. I'm saying to help them navigate those things in the way that they should. And that's my final word.
Okay, and I think that's great and noble, and I think it's awesome. And it seems like all we do is, when it comes to education, all we can do is discuss the problems. And I'm all in agreement with what Sonara said, except if you're a parent and you step up to the podium at a school board meeting, you might get arrested if you're trying to tell the school board you disagree with the policies they put in place.
Some people have been.
They have.
Yeah.
They have.
Yeah. They don't like the fact that particular school instituted a policy that let these boys that want to dress up like girls and go into the girls' locker rooms and bathrooms.
But we do have to speak up, and we can't expect to always be welcomed and comforted and everything be Skittles and rainbows flying out your booty. Sometimes we do have to do the hard things, and we do have to step up, and we do have to pick your battles to, the hills you want to die on. I mean, that's something too. That's something to be thinking about.
If how your kids are being treated, how your kids are being educated, or how your kids should not be being indoctrinated are not hills that you shouldn't hesitate to want to die on, then I don't have a lot of respect for you.
Well, and to end that, I would just say you reference, Matthew 10:22. You'll be hated by everyone because of me, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved.
Mm-hmm.
Amen. Amen.
That's a good one.
Thank
Take us out on that. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. I've seen people come in and out. Just want to encourage y'all to please like, share, follow, and subscribe. You'll help get our message out. This is here to help people. This is here to share wisdom. This is here to create critical thinking, as we were talking tonight with Kim. Good night. Love y'all. Can't wait to see y'all again next Thursday. Everybody have a great evening.
I appreciate y'all. Good night.